The 0% corporate tax rate in Dubai is deader than a dead dog, and a lot of people are saying it, including your favorite YouTuber. You know who's not saying it is the bros, the nasty bros in Dubai. They're saying nasty things about your favorite YouTuber. We're gonna talk about 0% versus 9%. What's really happening? Let's talk about it. Stormy Daniels, Phony Willis, I'm so innocent. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson, founder of Nomad Capitalist. And we're going to talk today about 0% tax in the UAE versus 9% tax. I've been saying there is now, for most people, a 9% tax. Didn't say there's anything wrong with that, but we're going to talk about what's really happening. I'm going to briefly share my thoughts on the UAE in general. I'm going to tell you why I didn't move to Dubai. I'm going to share some of the comments I'm getting from the haters and the copycats about what they're saying about Dubai. And then I'm going to actually tell you what's happening with the new tax in Dubai to hopefully finally put this to rest. I've said for some time, I've mentioned it in interviews, I think the UAE government's one of the most forward-looking in terms of hiring smart people. The finance minister, I saw him speaking a couple years ago, really just smart people in the government. The finance minister actually knows finance in the UAE. Shocking, not a political hack like in Western countries. They listen to what is working in other places and they adapt it. Hey, like the idea is what's working somewhere else. Let's not do this dogmatic, this is how we do it. Let's figure out what works for the best people and let's do that. That approach is all fantastic. And so they had 0% tax for a long time. They continue to have zero tax on the personal level for things like personal income, if you have a job, if you have things like Bitcoin. They've never had 0% tax for things like royalties, dividends from stocks in countries like the US, European countries, et cetera. I think a lot of people misunderstand that. Income that is taxed at the source overseas, you might pay at some of the highest rates living in the UAE. But as an individual, just individual income, a job, that kind of thing, that continues to be zero. What happened and what doesn't really get talked about that much, and I'm going to tell you why I think people are suppressing this, not the government, but some of the greasy people who have moved to Dubai and need it to appear to be what it once was. There's now a new 9% tax on most companies, unless you're Aristotle Onassis, the shipping magnate. I don't think he's with us anymore. Unless you have a number of different holding company activities. Chances are you're going to be paying 9% if you incorporate in the UAE. This does not mean I hate the UAE, I hate Dubai. I got a residence permit in the UAE a number of years ago, and I said, okay, this is a pretty efficient process. They run this place well. I like a lot of the things that they do. I like that you can immigrate there if you buy real estate, start a company, even get a job. Like, they do a lot of things well. I decided not to move there. My wife and I went there. She said, at first we really liked it. Then it's like, I just don't feel good here. And I said, okay. Now, a lot of people in the citizenship industry are there, not the top level firms, but some of the mid-level and lower rung firms are there. There's a lot of illegal discounting, a lot of stuff I just think is ethically wrong. So if I were to live there, that's kind of an extra point against it. Like, I would be, the person that everyone's copying in our industry. Somehow, some of these guys all make the exact same videos that we do, like 2 days later. And all of them, except for the guy who's making his videos in front of an old shower curtain somewhere, I think. Most of them are in Dubai. The networking aspect for me in my own industry in Dubai isn't very attractive. We just didn't feel like it was our place. I enjoy spending time there. I enjoy going there every once in a while. I have enjoyed meeting some people there. It's just not the place that I want to be. We help clients move to Dubai and other places in the UAE. I don't judge you if you want to live there. And I think this is a case of, it's kind of like people who live in the United States and their only sense of identity is being an American. And if you try and attack something that the US does, their sense of identity gets hurt and they have to lash out at you. And I think there's some folks who go to Dubai because they followed the herd, which is something that probably also I didn't want to go there for. I had a client who moved there 10 years ago. Nobody, he said, was there then. Now everyone's going there. And I want to go places where the herd isn't. And so if you follow the herd, but you're not secure in your choice, maybe you'll lash out at me when there's even a hint of me saying anything against your place. The bottom line is there's a 9% tax on most businesses now in the UAE, free zone, mainland, you name it. And so let's go through some of the comments that people have left, and then I'm going to tell you the truth. So the couple big things are, number one, I hate Dubai. That's not true. You can choose not to live somewhere and not hate it. And the other thing people said is, well, what's so bad about 9%? So let's address that. One person said, for me, 10%, 9% is fine. Nothing wrong with that. What I'm upset about is I think that the people who sell you companies in the UAE are trying to dance around this, and you've got people now trading off of my name because they have no other way to get attention, saying he's wrong, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm going to tell you why they're wrong in a minute. But I've never said, listen, I've signed up in the last couple of years to pay a little bit more tax. I'm not paying 9%, but I'm paying a little bit more in real dollar terms. There's nothing wrong with paying 9%, but when the people who are selling the thing have to resort to like smoke and mirrors to make you kind of think it's 0%, or even probably a few of them are outright saying it's still 0%, don't listen to that Nomad Capitalist guy, that's wrong. If you go in knowing all the facts and deciding you want to live there, and you're happy to pay 9% for the privilege, and you understand there are other jurisdictions you could move to and probably pay less than 9% and possibly get citizenship, which you probably won't in the UAE, and you still choose to live in the UAE, then who am I to criticize you? You have my full support. But if you don't know all of those facts, and if you've gone to someone in the UAE whose only business is selling you companies in the UAE, then you should understand the facts. We've helped people move to 31 different tax-friendly countries, including the UAE. Always proud to help people move to the UAE. There are people, even influencers, big-name influencers, who are still saying it's 0% tax. It's just not true. By the way, if you're an American, it was never true. That's not the UAE's fault. That's the U.S. government's fault. For most Americans, it wouldn't be full 0%. There are a handful of folks it could work for full zero. But again, that is gone now. So if you understand what you're getting into, and you talk to someone like Nomad Capitalist, where we're like, hey, you could live in Malta, you could live in Cyprus, you could live in Ireland, you could live in Bulgaria, you could live in Malaysia, you could live in Panama, or a combination of a bunch of places, and pay less, and maybe you get a citizenship, and maybe you like that more, and you're still like, no, I want to go to Dubai. Fair game, right? Throw in Italy, throw in Switzerland, throw in Greece, lots of places that you could go to. And if you're the kind of person, we work with folks who make $500,000 a year or more. Our sweet spot is you make a couple $1 million a year, or you have $5 to $30 million. That's the sweet spot. We work with more and we work with less. But if you're in that sweet spot, you can pay less living somewhere else, and you may have other things that you want. But if Dubai is your place, that's what we will do for you. And so my frustration is folks who only sell one thing, who need to get angry and trade off of my name to somehow continue their smoke and mirrors. That has nothing to do with Dubai. It has nothing to do with the UAE. It has everything to do with a small subset of people who choose to go there and talk the place up. Nothing against the place itself. Here's the next comment. Hard to find people who've actually lived in the UAE that dislike as much as you, Andrew. I don't dislike it. I just dislike a handful of people who are engaging in smoke and mirrors. It's not for everyone. Neither is Asia or the EU. Pretty straightforward comment. Depending on your type of business, it's tax efficient. It is. It's not tax free. Other upsides are English speaking. Not as good as some places. I cannot say I'm blown away with the English speaking there. Amazing services. Okay. Cheaper real estate than some places. Not so much anymore. And you can actually own. Sure. I don't go anywhere where I can't own real estate, I don't think. Efficient airport. It is. Not the best, but it's good. Very connected, no doubt. 80% plus expats. By the way, if you're saying this as someone from the US or the UK, they're not expats like you. Nothing wrong with that. I met some really nice like Lebanese people there. And I think, by the way, if you're coming from an Arabic or Muslim country, I much more understand why I understand why everyone's going there, but I much more get the point for you. Like, hey, do you want to live in Lebanon where there's, actual challenges and your taxes are higher? Or do you want to go to the UAE and pay 9%? And just enjoy yourself? I get that. That makes total sense to me. 80% of the expats are not from the US, UK, and Australia. So if you're one of those folks, you want to find expats who are like you, then that's not the UAE. I happen to like the diversity in Dubai. That's one thing that's a very strong point in favor of it. I know you scoff at safety. Here's where the anger comes in. These people they're seething with anger that someone questioned their beloved place as if they need my approval to feel good about their choice. I know you scoff at safety. I have no idea where he gets that. Maybe he scoffs at the places that I go. It's probably more it's kind of like a projection. It's a confession that I scoff at safety. When you have teens wanting freedom, it's a major attraction. Okay, I'm all for it. No doubt it's one of the safest places on earth. The entire Gulf is. Downside, big city, 7 months a year, the weather's horrific, dusty, traffic. I never got the whole weather thing. I don't hold that against it, honestly. Banking is easy compared to EU, no doubt, but running a company in the UAE is not easy if you don't live, or in Dubai, it's not easy if you don't live there. It is based for people who live there. So my issue that I came out and said was, If you set up your company in the UAE as an international, as the top company in your international group, or if you're small enough, you're just the only company, and you said, hey, I'm going to travel the world as a digital nomad, as a nomad capitalist, but my headquarters are going to be in the UAE because this free zone 0%, not only are you going to pay now for the privilege of not living there, but the banking is not really designed to be remote. I think the banks are very, very safe. I don't question my money sitting in there, but I question the remote aspect of working there. And I'll challenge this guy directly in the English speaking at the banks. Absolutely horrific English speaking in banks. And I'm not keeping 10 grand in the bank. I'm keeping more than that. The bankers that I have, they could not hold a candle to Singapore or even Malaysia, maybe not even to Georgia. I mean, probably not much worse, but the English speaking from the banks and the remote from the banks. Again, is that against the government or the country or the place? Not at all. They're trying to do all the right things, but you've got, banks that just, it's not built for Americans or it's not. Someone said it's still better than Ireland. It's a matter of opinion. Ireland is 40% tax. Not if you're a non-dom. So I've mentioned Ireland, and I'm not saying if you are from Ireland, you probably wouldn't qualify to be a non-dom. But if Ireland's a place you could move to, you could probably pay less than 9% tax on the whole thing. UAE is very central. Restaurants and groceries are cheap. I'm not sure about the groceries are cheap. I think they said gas. Yeah, gas is also, that's cheap. Safe and innovative. 12 months is nice weather. Some people disagree on the weather. Again, I'm not a big weather chaser. I'm willing to pay 9% company tax for that. Great. Pay 9% if you want. I'm not against paying 9%. I'm against you getting suckered into thinking you're going to keep paying 0 because someone who only has a UAE company to sell you, or now some of them are now set up in Saudi Arabia or something. If that's all they have to sell you, they're going to tell you what they have to tell you sometimes. So what? Income tax free and business only 9% and $80,000 free. With all due respect, this is not me crapping on people who make 80,000. Some of us make a lot more than 80,000. So 80,000 at 0% doesn't move the needle for me or for our clients. I'm glad they have it. We'll come back to that. Just let me get through the rest of the comments and I'll get to what's actually happening. Why wouldn't anyone want to live there? Here's maybe one thing I just have against these places where people flock to. You do develop this cult-like mentality. I left the US to get away from this. Oh, it's the greatest country. I've never been anywhere else, but it's the greatest country. We all have different choices to make. If you like to live in Dubai, part-time, full-time, some of my favorite clients live in Dubai. Like, nothing wrong with that. What? Everyone should want to live there. Like, that's ridiculous. And again, 9% won't change that. Okay, if you're happy to pay 9%, know that you're paying 9%. Here's a guy. Now he's threatening. Perhaps you won't be let in the next time. If you don't want to let me into your country, then that kind of says more about you than about me. But I don't think this guy works for the government, so I'm not really worried about starfish, a bunch of numbers. 9% tax I pay with a smile, I pay 36% now. Okay, if you're paying 36 and you could go to 0, the fact that 9% is also lower is irrelevant. If you're gonna change your life, you might as well change your life. If you choose the 9% as the best option, fine. I can find, if you make $500,000 a year or more, I can find at least a dozen places where you pay less than 9% in other countries. And I can find many more than that where you just pay 0. So this idea that, if you just lower it, again, nothing against paying 9%, but did you evaluate the places where you could pay 0, 1, 2, 7%? This idea that because it's less, it's like, I'm tired of getting abused by my spouse. I'm going to go and get in a relationship with the person who only beats me half as much. Like, that's not really a great argument. Billionaire complaining about, finally someone thinks I'm not, but finally. Finally someone who thinks I make more than 50 grand a year. Andrew, you kept saying 9% tax for free zone companies. There is no tax for free zone companies. I'm sorry, only mainland companies. I'm sorry, you're simply wrong. You're simply wrong, and this is what I'm talking about. So again, if you pay 40% somewhere else, you should be happy to pay 9. I don't get that. So here is the reality. There is what's called small business relief in the UAE. I'm going to quote this directly from our tax team. We've got 82 people, as well as a network of hundreds of vendors around the world that I've spent well over a decade cultivating. Don't take it from me, take it from them. To claim small business relief, revenue for the relevant to previous tax periods cannot exceed 3 million dirhams. So that's about $800,000 US dollars. That incentive ends December 31st, 2026. After that, it will no longer be available unless the UAE government extends the policy. They could, but right now you have 2024, 25, and 26. If your revenue does not exceed and hasn't exceeded 3 million dirhams, 800,000-ish dollars, hold on, I don't want to be, criticized. What is it, 3.675? 816,000 and change US dollars. It will not be available for qualifying free zones persons, members of multinational groups with revenues of more than 3.15 billion dirhams. That's probably not any of us. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But basically, if you haven't done more than 816,000 US dollars in revenue, so if you're in consulting, maybe you netted 700. If you're in e-commerce, maybe you netted, 150 or 200. So that's not huge money. That is not me saying if you're doing business at that level, good for you. We've all been there. I hope you keep growing. But when you keep growing, you're no longer eligible for that relief. And in 2027, it's all out. And so you have folks who are out there saying, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Listen, yes, I have a business to run. I hope you go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply and you learn about our services. And if you're someone that we can help and we can get a positive ROI for, that you work with us. I hope, yes, full transparency. Shocking, a guy whose name is Capitalist runs a business. He wants to sell you something. But I don't want to sell you something under false pretenses. I don't want to sell you something where I only have one option to offer you. And so, again, we've helped people move to 31 countries. If someone's only job is we help people move to Dubai, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to find any way to shoehorn you into Dubai or else they ain't making a sale. I can afford, because, these guys act, and they're talking like, he doesn't know what he's talking about because we can all go into this small business exemption. Yeah, me and my clients make more than 3 million dirhams in revenue or profit every year. So we don't qualify for this. We don't run shipping companies, and we don't fall into the limit exemptions that are under this. There are some people who can run businesses in the UAE at zero, and obviously, again, if you're an individual, you can do that as well. But this is kind of part of my challenge with the place, again, where the herd goes. It's nothing against the place itself, but you get these people who act like, 800 grand. It's like these people act like no one could be smarter or wealthier than they are. No one's ever made more than $816,000 in revenue. If they say so, they're crazy. They're talking crazy talk. And so that's the bottom line. If you are, and listen, let me say it for how many times so there's no confusion. God bless you, and I mean it. I'm happy for your success if you qualify for this. I'm happy for my success so I can be happy for yours. If you need to be upset that other people are successful, that's on you. I'm happy if you qualify for this, but it is coming to an end in 2027. You'll be paying the 9%. The rest of us who have more than $816,000 in revenue or have had in the past are already out. And by the way, people say, you can put as part of a complex group and you can move some stuff around. Potentially, but they still have other kind of corporate rules that other jurisdictions have where you can't necessarily just have your entire company offshore and then not pay the tax in the UAE. There are some inclusion mechanisms to be that if you're living there, there are some ways to include foreign income. So the idea of just have the company somewhere else is an overly simplistic strategy. So that is what is happening directly from the mouth of the experts. If you want to move and you want to pay the 9%, then we'd be happy to help you do that. We'd like to make sure you know all of your other options first. Many people, including Americans, who are going to pay, if you're an American making $1 million a year, unless you qualify for some of the more limited circumstances, you're probably going to be paying net something like 9%. Maybe the UAE works for you, but there's so many different factors that come into play that aren't talked about, where people just think tax-free, tax-free, tax-free. It's we've given case studies with people who moved to the UAE and they've ended up paying more tax. That's limited, but there are certain types of income where you will pay more than if you lived in Europe. And you're not going to get citizenship. And so I just think there's a lot of misinformation about people make these things overly simplistic. And somehow me saying that triggers a lot of people. I understand why if your goal was to sell someone a UAE free zone company and that's all you got, you would be triggered. Everybody else, relax. I don't live there, but I'm happy to go there. I think they've done a great job. We're looking at getting some of the folks from the UAE government to speak at future Nomad Capitalist Lives. I think, I've seen the finance minister speak. I was really impressed. I like what they're doing. I like their approach to immigration. I like what they talk about. Let's make sure we're actually informed. And I'm not sure why being informed about all your options is a bad thing.